Sarah, where we're talking about what you're thinking about. So, how you doing today?
I am doing. Yeah. Yep. I'm here for this. Yeah.
Are you really?
No, not really.
Yeah.
In my heart. In
my heart.
No,
we're here.
It's just a lot. There's so much going on right now.
Yeah.
And, it's like every time I turn on the news, somebody else has had an issue. And so I'm a little in both worlds,
It's been a heavy week.
It's been a heavy week,
So at the time of this recording, it's gloomy outside. There's been a lot going on in the news and in the world, and
some uprisings, waiting on some trials to wrap up, had another shooting, so it's just a lot. It's just a lot.
Yeah, it is. So, well, I'm glad you're here.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you're here.
And I'm digging this.
You digging those dots?
I really am, yes.
Yes, I see you polka dots.
I'm liking that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm liking the flowers. I feel like I should have done that.
We all do our own thing. We do what we're feeling, right? Always like a little. I'm wearing my absolute favorite piece under here. Like, I wear this thing all the time, and I love it. I always rock the Converse with them, and they're super fun. So we're talking some more about cancel culture today.
That's right.
So if you haven't already seen our first episode about cancel culture, you can go back and look at what was aired. I think it aired April 5th, and we'll pop a link below so that you know where you can link right into that video. So we thought we'd talk a little bit more about that, and really talking about what this cancel culture looks like, and really what it looks like, when we have to make choices about what's okay and not okay for us. And, we really started, you and I had this conversation just, out somewhere in the office like we normally do. And really about what we do in public versus what we do in private.
Absolutely. And to just kind of circle back a little bit to the private conversation you and I had, we were kind of talking about how that's one of the fears people have on speaking up and being an ally, is that they'll be canceled. And it reminds me of kind of like the playground, the grown-up version of being iced out on the playground. Like all of a sudden people are talking to you, and you don't know where it's safe to step. And so I do think we do have an innate fear of being canceled or iced out, and I think that we just have to be honest about that. Because I think sometimes people who are very bold and loud and strong fail to realize that not everyone lives that way. And so being canceled or iced out, it's a cost,
right?
And I don't really think we always consider the cost,
right?
So if you speak up and somebody goes, and I mean speaking up for the side of right, and your family ices you out and cancels you. So we don't think about that.
Right.
We think about, I canceled you because you did something wrong and you deserved it. Well, what about being canceled by family and friends who just can't get with the whole social justice, allyship, believe survivors thing?
Yeah. And I appreciate it, because I'm coming to this conversation, I think, as one of those people who has to constantly remind myself that not everybody handles things the way I do. Because I can be pretty loud and
Kelsey-free.
Kelsey-free.
Sip my tea.
What? And there are times when it's like, even you've had to be like, well, it's like, I love it. It's like, while we work so well together, it's like, I'm over here and I'm ready to throw down. And Dina's just like, well, but we have to remember that not everybody. And I'm like, you're right. Thank you for that.
On any given day, I feel like we're going to be charging through the office, getting our checkbooks and our credit cards, because we can bail her out of jail. Come on, y'all, we've got to go.
I know. It's a wonder that I haven't already.
Well, just know there is a bail fund for you, girl. We're here for that.
I appreciate that. You don't really have my back. I love it. No, but it is. And I think it's, we talked about this too, that for those of us who, maybe already, in my younger years, so to speak, or weird way you want to put that, but I had to take a stand early on in my adulthood about things that just weren't right, like that just didn't sit right in my system, sit right in my soul. And I was like, I'm not okay with this. It doesn't, and at the time I lacked the maturity and I lacked grace. I lacked grace, not just for other people, but for myself.
Sure.
And I really struggled. Like, it was a real struggle. And I really went the route of, well, I don't care who doesn't like me, and I really shielded up, and and then I got broken down, and then I got really, then I just decided, well, I'm just not going to do anything, and so I kind of, wavered, I kind of like a pendulum swinging back and forth. And I love this conversation because it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. If we're just, if, like you said, if we're really honest about how difficult it is to stand up for the right thing.
And I think that because we kind of walk the earth wanting acceptance, but kind of wishing we didn't need it, that we don't always tell the truth, because you just say what you say and let the chips fall. Well, if that means you don't get to go to Thanksgiving, or Christmas is not the same because you had to say something, then a lot of people are not willing to pay that price. They're just not. And I think so. That's why I think it is dangerous to cancel people out of hand without thinking about what their cost was. I'm not responsible for the cost if you speak up in your community, your neighborhood, your church, or whatever, your synagogue. But I do have to, at least in my mind, if I'm going to be a real bridge builder and a peacemaker, I got to at least consider there could be a cost. Now, I think it's interesting how different people come at this. I have a white friend who's married to a black man, and she's like so fired up. And I believe her, and I believe her heart, and I believe the work. Her husband is gentler and quieter, and she just doesn't get it. And I had to explain. I think I'm just reminding her. He walks the earth as a big black man. He has gotten the message that he's dangerous and scary. So you have had to go almost completely backwards to be the not scary black man. So for him, if he even raises his voice or shows any emotion, he's immediately in danger. And so that's another reason we have to think about how are we treating each other. I will be labeled the angry black woman if I bring up anything in certain situations. So I've had to learn how to couch it with a joke, put a neutral to pleasant smile on my face, bring it up at the right time, because I've been labeled things that weren't even true, but it's because of stereotypes. So I think there are two sides to that cancel coin, so I have to be very careful about it. Even though I totally get it. And I'm not inviting folks who wear KKK robes and hoods to my house for a barbecue. We're not doing that, okay? So they're canceled immediately. So, but could I maybe talk to the sister-in-law or the cousin? Is there an entree to maybe the other people who are connected to the Klansmen? I don't know. But right now it's working for me to just try to give somebody some grace. And I'm older, so I can, I've been there. I've done the, I don't care what people think. I do kind of care. Or you're misunderstood. And like you said, you back way up, So all that. I just said we need to tell the truth. And tell the truth to yourself quickly so you get your work done.
Oh yeah, well, that's a whole nother real talk.
Real talk.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate, because, sometimes I think with cancel culture, we've talked about this, like, it has its place. It certainly has its place.
Sure.
And sometimes I think that cancel culture, it can really be built on the assumptions that we've made. So, you mentioned, these assumptions that we make about each other, we make about other people, and that when somebody does, overstep or make a mistake or say something that they could have said differently or better maybe or anything like that, and you said that fear of being immediately canceled will cause people to back away, shy away, and steer clear of the conversation rather than leaning in and learning well, how could I have done that differently? Sure. So that assumption that they have to be XYZ because they did this.
That's good.
it really, and I mean, and I will be the first to admit, I'm guilty of it too. I think we all are. I think we're all guilty of hearing what somebody says or looking at what somebody did and just being like, oh, no, sorry, you're not me. You're not one of me.
Absolutely.
But, you know, one of my teachers a long time ago taught me something that has been very beneficial and not always easy to do. But the moment I start to say, well, this person, you know, this person just doesn't care about people because they did this, this, and this, you know, but to always add when I'm saying something about somebody else to try on just like me. And kind of go like, has there ever been a time when I've done that too?
Right.
Well, this person is so impatient and so like, you know, they could have handled that so much better.
Right.
Just like me. And I'm like, oh, well, there's been times when I've said or done something that I'm like, well, I wish, you know, like I could have done that differently. Yeah. Could have done that better.
Yeah. Well, see, that's where the grace for yourself comes in.
Yeah.
Because you're not excusing your behavior, you're acknowledging that you did that. And I love that. That makes so much sense to me. And I think that that's what an ally will do. That's what a transformational leader will do. We will look at what it is and tell ourselves the truth about it. And then we will make an action plan for moving forward. People get stuck in guilt and they get stuck in shame. And they whine a lot. You know, please honor the way I want to do this, okay? Well, you know, please. Okay, no. And if we are not taking very good care to be honest, we will get stuck, to be honest. That's just the bottom line. We're going to get stuck. And getting stuck on anger or getting stuck on fear, either one is paralyzing. You cannot move forward.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we fall into that trap of what allyship really is versus how we can make it look.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So, you know, it to be an ally means that, you know, I have to take steps that are more than what I post on social media, for example, or how I want the world to see me. And at the same time, cancel culture can really create spaces where that gets even harder. And how do we navigate that? And I'm not saying that it's either or. I think it's both and.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that's that public versus private thing we were talking about. You know, I can cancel somebody, like we were talking about R. Kelly. You cancel somebody in public, but privately you're listening. Well, tell the truth about that to yourself. That's all you're really, you know, tell yourself. Well, or if I cancel somebody, but internally I'm not really sure. That's a conversation that probably ought to be had with a trusted individual, you know, because what we do publicly and what we do private, I think that's where this problem is. I think people got shocked on January 6th by how many people they thought a certain way were standing right there screaming, yelling, and doing the insurrection thing, and then supporting the people who were the insurrectionists. And I think a lot of people were like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that my congressman felt like that, you know? And I think that's why that public versus private thing is one of the reasons it's so important. Tell the truth. And telling it's hard. It's like telling the truth is really hard because one, we first have to be willing to acknowledge how we feel. And sometimes how we feel and what we think and what pops into our head isn't necessarily what the world around us says is okay. Right. Well, and I think we're unfortunately in a time where people are not encouraged to think deeply. And so you're gonna do whatever is right on the surface. And so it could be anger, or it could be guilt, or it could be shame, or it could be canceling. And none of that requires a lot of deep thought. You just react, you know. I was talking to a group of, a professional group of people of color, and we were asking the hard question, how do we move past anger? You know, and I said, well, you know, we were all saying, but you get to be angry right now. This is exactly the appropriate response. My opinion is we start looking for a way forward, but going ahead and acknowledging that this is really hard. You know, in this day and time, it's very difficult to be a person of color. And to recognize that your anger, I mean, like there was the Chauvin trial, they were bringing up that one of the witnesses kept trying not to say that he was angry when he was watching what happened. And they were pushing him to say he was angry. And it's code, you know, the angry black man. And he kept saying, I was professional. I was in my body. I did not come out of that. I was not angry. Would not describe myself as angry. And how that loaded word becomes a problem. And then you, like you said, you don't tell yourself the truth. Like, no, I am pissed, you know. And then there's no healing and there's no moving forward. So it's a whole thing, you know. And I think it's the same with survivors. I think it's the same with any marginalized people. Where we have to tell the truth about where we are. But to me, you're always looking to the future. Where am I going to go with this? You know, because anger can be fuel, but it can also destroy you.
Well, and that, I mean, there's I think it can be that forward looking can go one of two or even maybe more ways. And one of those ways, that looking forward of, how can I get past this? So that I don't because I need to get past this. I need to get rid of this. You know, which is very much, I think, a conditioned response for marginalized communities. That, you know, I'm not allowed to be angry, so I have to push past this because I don't want anybody else to see or experience my anger. It's not okay. It's just not okay. It's not acceptable.
Not pretty.
It's not pretty, you know, and then the other side of that is moving forward with that, you know, with that experience of anger. And that anger can be a very empowering feeling. It can be a very empowering experience. It, you know, I think so many of us, especially women and especially Black women, I think, and obviously not speaking, but, you know, conversation you don't have, being angry is just, it's so taboo. It's just not allowed. And that we're supposed to be all, we're just supposed to let things roll off our backs. And
we're strong.
And so when we really start to experience anger, like really feel it, feel it in our bodies, feel it in our systems, and allow it to be there without reacting to it. Just it can be a very scary thing to experience when we're not used to doing that. So I mean, it's definitely something that we have to practice. We have to cultivate it. And but I've always been a strong believer that, well, not always, since I've learned this. I'm trying to avoid absolutes these days. It's very just right in our language. But anyways, you know, but I really firmly believe and have experienced how powerful and empowering my rage can be. And it doesn't have to be destructive. I think where it becomes destructive is where it's not acknowledged. It's like, well, I'm not angry. But it's seething out of my pores, and it's dripping off of every word and every action and every movement, because I won't acknowledge it, so it's seeping out in other places, and it's creating dissonance and animosity and you know, all of this toxicity, rather than going, oh, I notice the anger and the rage of watching Mr. George Floyd literally suffocate to death.
Absolutely.
Rather than pushing that anger away and going, I don't want to deal with this. Tapping into the rage. No. And from my perspective, everybody should feel, should experience watching that, because that is horrifying.
I mean, the entire world saw us fail. And I think that, I love that, even the body language with that, because I think anger is scary. I think rage is scarier. And until I could find the definition, and I may have mentioned it before, of rage, because rage is dipped in the alchemy of despair and panic. So when I was going, oh, I don't want to see people who look like me burning things, because that's not the way that's not how we do this, guys. They're going to look at us weird. They're going to look at us like we're dangerous. When I stepped over and could say, oh yeah, panic, that it could be my husband, panic that could be my son, and let myself feel that overwhelming, suffocating panic. then it was like, okay, I can manage this. And then also the despair. I've been working toward letting Black people and white people have honest conversations for 25 years. They're still killing Black men in the street. So I didn't have the language. As much as I talk about words, I did not understand that rage was anger mixed with despair and panic. And so when you can feel that, for anybody who is enraged, I think panic and despair brings something in me. Something kneels in my heart because I think, oh my God, you feel like there's no tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
The empathy that we can experience.
Exactly.
And that ability to tap into, you know, like I can never understand your rage. I can never feel your rage. But I know what it's like to feel rage within my own system. And so that's where I can empathize with the rage that you're experiencing and the fear and the panic and the pain.
Yeah.
You know, because I've experienced that too. Yes, differently. But pain is pain. You know, and I think that is where that's Lisa, that just, my brain is on fire right now, which is awesome and exciting. You know, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's just so much going on, because that to me is when we really can see ourselves in each other and each other in ourselves. Yes. And really tap into those just real raw experiences with emotions and feelings and you know, it doesn't have to be the same circumstances, it doesn't have to be the same perspectives, but we all know what great pain and grief can feel like, what great fear, what great rage can feel like. Then that's when we're able to really connect. And I think that's where we can move beyond cancel culture.
I think that's good. And on the other side of it, as a Black woman, to recognize that there are people who are not going to trust a white woman's experience because it's not the same. And so being careful your language is so good, so careful, it won't be the same, but I can tap into some of that, because if you can start with each other's humanity, then you can walk forward, and eventually together. Eventually, I think we can do that together. And I think there are pockets where I'm seeing it work. I think that's part of it, and I think going back, I'm pointing because that's where it is on the board, pointing to that public versus private, where we start calling people to account, and no, you don't just do that on social media, you do that in your life. And I think that's part of it. To me, that's a really good part of the puzzle, Laura, that what part of the other person's humanity can you tap into? Right.
Yeah. Because it's really easy. It's really easy for us to post our Black squares. And it's really easy for us to, you know, to talk about, like, well, racism is bad. And, you know, we can talk about what has happened to Black people over centuries. We can talk about how terrible that is. And yet, until I really start tapping into empathy and humanity, it's all just performance. Absolutely. It's all just for show.
Yeah. And so we're going to talk about performative activism and allyship. If not, we're going to do it soon. I know we are, because I think it's really important for people to understand. And, you know, it's the difference between your stated values and your operational values. My stated values, I throw up a Black square, I say Black Lives Matter, but operationally, I'm not having any deep conversations, I'm not thinking deeply, I'm not pushing myself to read something that makes me twitch a little bit. I'm not opening myself up to the low-hanging fruit, like the person who doesn't look like me down the hall, or the you know, striking up a conversation with someone who doesn't look like me in the line, in the grocery store. All of those are ways to open yourself up. And that, to me, will get your stated and your operational values closer together. And that's integrity. We have a dearth of integrity in our country. It's like, we're not honest, we're not strong, and we have no integrity. You know, we're embarrassing. Yeah, facts. So we're going to have to work on that. Would you put together a plan?
I've got this. Yeah, like I love strategic planning.
Well, that's what you said.
Let's do this. We're gonna put this group together and
get right on that.
All those things.
I think it'll work. I think we can do it.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Yeah. I love this conversation, and I think that As you said, I think this is definitely a conversation that we're going to continue. That is, I think that it feels complete.
It does.
How about you?
I
Okay,
think so.
yeah, I mean,
I
it
think
feels
so.
complete. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to wrap this up, and so let us know what you think. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know what you think. And obviously, if you have any ideas or thoughts or questions or anything,
Sure.
you're absolutely welcome to drop in the comments below, or even email us at realtalk@sararoanoke.org. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.